Hey, it's Mike from Savvy Nomad. If you've been following the news recently, then you've probably heard about the proposed Billionaire's Tax in California, which aims to impose a one-time wealth tax on the wealthiest residents of the state. Unsurprisingly, several billionaires are reportedly making moves to leave California residents permanently. Now, these guys, they're using some of the exact same tax optimization techniques that we've talked about here before. So even if you aren't a billionaire, there's a lot that expats and nomads can learn from this development. Let's dive in. The 2026 Billionaire Tax Act is a proposed law that would levy a 5% one-time wealth tax on billionaires residing in California. Supporters of the measure are currently gathering signatures in order to put it on the 2026 ballot, and if it passes next November, it would be retroactive to any billionaires residing in the state on January 1st, 2026. So even though this idea is still in its early stages, some billionaires, they're not taking any chances. According to a recent report in the New York Times, Google co-founder Larry Page and venture capitalist Peter Thiel have both taken steps to terminate their California residency. Now, if you watch our videos regularly, then you know that California is already the highest taxed state in the US, with a personal income tax rate that tops out at 13.3%. If you're an expat or a digital nomad and you no longer reside in California full-time, then it's a total no-brainer to transfer your residency to a low-tax state. Now, whether you're a billionaire like Peter Thiel or just a retired school teacher living on a pension in Mexico, the process looks exactly the same. Step one is to establish a domicile in a low-tax state. First, you want to establish a domicile in a state with no personal income tax. We recommend Florida because it's very expat friendly and it's easy to establish a domicile. In fact, from what's been reported in the media, it looks like Larry Page and Peter Thiel are both doing exactly that. Now, if you're a billionaire, you probably just buy a mansion in Miami or something like that. But what if you're a little bit lower on the income scale? Well, in that case, you're in luck because we've put out a lot of content on how ordinary people can establish a domicile in Florida. And if you want someone to handle all the paperwork for you and coach you through the process, then check out Savvy Nomad's service. Quick plug for ourselves here, we can get you a residential address that works for things like getting a driver's license and voting. Link is in the video description. Make sure you use the code YouTube for special discount. Now, step two in the process is to relocate your stuff. It's especially important to move your valuables out of the state of California. That includes things like paintings, jewelry, even pets if you have them. All of these things can be used by tax authorities as evidence of continued presence in the state, so make sure you take care of that. Step three is to follow the 183-day rule. This determines if you are a resident of the state for tax purposes, so make sure you are actually physically residing in another state or in another country. A lot of wealthy people, billionaires, they're really careful about how much time they spend in high tax states like New York and California, and you need to do the same. We have a full video on the 183-day rule, so make sure you check that out. Step four is to transfer your IDs and vehicle registration. Once you qualify for residency in another state like Florida, make sure you get a new state ID as soon as you can. And if you have any vehicles, you're going to want to get those registered in your new state as well. Step five, register to vote in your new state. Regardless of whether or not you care about voting, you need to do this because it demonstrates that you're planning to integrate into the local community. Step six, update your address. Contact your bank, your credit card company, your retirement account, any financial institution that is still using your old address, and make sure they're sending their mail to your new address. Step seven, notify your employer. You want to make sure that your employer is paying into the correct state's unemployment fund. You don't want to leave this as a loose end. Step 8, notify the IRS. File Form 8822, which is the official change of address form. Step 9, cut ties with California completely. This includes things like selling or renting out properties, getting a new primary care doctor, or even a new vet for your dog. Cancel newspaper subscriptions. Basically, you want to make sure that there's nothing remaining that ties you to the state. Step 10, make sure you keep careful records. In case a dispute arises later on, you want to make sure you've documented all of the previous steps. If this measure ends up passing, then we can be sure that the state of California is going to audit any billionaires that try to terminate their residency. We know this because California is already one of the most aggressive states when it comes to going after former residents for taxes. And we have a full video on how to avoid getting yourself into trouble with that. So make sure you check that out, how to avoid a California tax audit. Bottom line here is, if you're mobile, it's best to get this done as soon as you can. Right now, the proposed law only applies to those with a net worth of $1 billion. But what if that threshold gets lowered to 100 million or 10 million? We just don't know what the future holds. But what is pretty clear is that taxes are likely to only go in one direction, and that's up. So better to get this started as soon as possible. Billionaires have already been taking advantage of all the tips and tricks that we talk about here, and they've been doing it for years. But the good news is that anyone can do the same thing. You just have to have the knowledge and the tools. So with that being said, we have a ton of content on this channel about how to optimize your taxes as a digital nomad or expat. So definitely subscribe. Check out the rest of our tax guides. We also just released our written 2026 expat tax guide. It's free for anyone who subscribes to our email list. So check that out. Link is in the video description. And last but not least, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. It just helps us out in the algorithm so we can get this content to more people who really need to see it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.